welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make block 5 in the Kaleidoscope Block of the Month. This block of the month is using Northcott Stonehenge Gradations fabrics. They're really pretty, and they have just a subtle texture on them, so from a distance it kind of looks solid, but when you get closer up there is a lot to look at. So that's one of my favorite things when I'm looking for fabric, is ones that give you more as you get closer to it. So today we're going to be making the corners of our border for the center medallion. And we only have to make 4 of them, so this is a really quick month. So if you've been behind on your previous months, this is a great month to get caught up because you don't have a lot to do. And we're just doing half square triangles, so it's going to be easy peasy. If you would like to follow along in the Kaleidoscope Block of the Month, just go to shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. There you can get a pattern book for Kaleidoscope, or you may be able to find it at your local quilt shop. There are lots of quilt shops across the US and Canada that are offering Kaleidoscope to their customers, so you may be able to get fabric locally as well. But of course you can always get it at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Let's get started. So we're going to start by marking a line from corner to corner on the wrong side of our squares. And to learn which squares to use, make sure you go to your pattern book. It'll tell you there. So I'm just using a gel pen that's going to show up nice and clear for me to follow along with. And we'll do one more here. Alright, now I'm going to pair these with other triangles. So we're going to have one where we have our light pink with our dark pink, and then one each with dark pink with black and light pink with black. For this next step, you either need a 1/4 inch foot on your machine or a machine that will set to a 1/4 inch stitch. I put mine to a 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to move my needle width 1 needle width to the right. So I'm setting it at 6.0 as opposed to 5.5, which is my normal setting for a 1/4 inch stitch. And that way I'll be able to sew a scant 1/4 inch stitch. It gives you a little bit extra breathing room, so that way when you are trimming down later, you're sure you're going to have plenty of fabric and you're going to be able to get perfect points. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to arrange these points so that they're together. If you want, you can pin this. I usually don't. I just like to get to sewing. So what I'm doing is I'm lining the edge of my presser foot up with that line that I just drew. And I'm going to sew all the way down. And since this block is so small, I'm just going to make it from start to finish right in front of you guys so you can see truly how easy it is. So by chain stitching this, I can save some time and thread. And I can just feed one in after the other. So I just grab all 3 pieces here, line those up, and I'm just making sure my points are nice and in line at the bottom before we sew all the way down. So now that I've chain pieced all those together, I'm just going to take this and flip it around. Pull out a little bit of thread so it's a little easier to line up. And now I'm still lining the presser foot up with that line that I drew, but I'm now going to sew down the other side of it, and that's going to create our seam allowance that we can use to make our half square triangles. Now we're going to take these and we're going to cut them apart on that drawn line. And if you're not perfectly on the drawn line, that's okay. We already have our accuracy from sewing a 1/4 inch from those drawn lines, so it's going to be all right. This is one of my favorite ways to make half square triangles because instead of having to cut everything apart before you sew it, which can lead to stretching on the bias, you're a lot less likely to do that. So you end up with perfect triangles that lay nice and flat and have points where they're supposed to be, because the fabric is just a little bit more stable by sewing on it before you cut it apart, as opposed to cutting it apart and then sewing it. Plus, I think it's a lot faster to make that happen. So I really like to press my seams open when I'm quilting triangles. It really helps have a nice flat seam to work with. And so we're going to do that for the majority of the blocks that we have going forward. So I usually press from the back and then from the front. And if you notice, you're going to have mirror images of these. We are only going to need one of each of these per block. So when you're done, you actually will have made all the half square triangles you need for 2 of the 4 blocks. So again, it's really a super, super fast quilt. If I can get this thing to open. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and press the one darker piece, and then we're ready for the next step. Okay, so we just need 3 of these, and we need to square them up. So when I'm working with small triangles, I like to use my 4.5 inch ruler. I find it's a lot easier to just kind of hold it in place. So because we sewed a scant 1/4 inch seam, we have plenty to trim off here. So I'm lining my 45-degree line up with my seam line, and then I'm making sure there's plenty of fabric past the 3.5 inch mark and also past the edges of my ruler. So I'm going to trim up the right side and the top side. And then I'm going to flip it over, and this time I'm lining the 3.5 inch mark right up with the piece that I just cut, and then also still lining up the 45-degree line with that seam allowance. And that will ensure that my points are exactly where they're supposed to be. So I've got that one trimmed. I need to do 2 more, and then this block is almost done. All right, so now we have to lay our pieces out, and we're also grabbing a black square to go along with this. And just make sure you're referring to your book, so that way you are laying it out in the correct order according to the layout diagram, because these pieces are going to line up with the edges of block 4, so that colorway is going to continue to transfer as we go out. So it's really important to make sure that you have everything where you're supposed to be. Okay, so now it's time to sew these together. So I need to put my machine back to a regular 1/4 inch stitch. We don't need that scant 1/4 inch seam anymore. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put these guys right sides together, and because we trim these, they should be the exact same size as all of each other and as our square that goes in the little corner there. Do the same thing with this one. Now with this one, we do have these points to match up, so we have to get that together. What I like to do is sort of look at it from above, and I kind of just make sure that my points are in line with each other and that my center is going at the same spot. So at that point, stick a little pin in here and we're ready to go. All right, so I've got that first set of the seam allowance sewed, so I'm going to remove my pin because everything should stay in place from here on out. All right, we've got that sewed down. Now I just need to press this, and of course you want to press underneath your dark seams whenever possible. So then that means that we need to press this bottom seam going in the opposite way of this one. That way we have nice good joints. Okay, so we've got that. So we'll flip this together, and these seams are just going to butt up right next to each other, which is great. Makes for really accurate piecing. So I can just stick my pin in then on the right here. So when I sew my seam allowance, I'm going to aim for sewing just to the right of where this point is. And then that way should ensure that I'm catching both points here and we're going to have a great joint. So I'm going to sew along right here, just inside this point. Alright, so as I come to that center, I'm going to slow down quite a bit so I can make sure we're sewing just inside that point that I showed you. And then I can speed up and finish out the rest of my block. Because that point is the one that matters, that's where you're going to see if it's off. So that's where you need to slow down and take some time to make it work. Alright, so we're almost done here. We just need to press this guy open and check our join. And it's pretty good. It's a little off on the top part. It's great on the bottom. If I wanted to, I could go back and mess with this, but we've got our block together. So make 4 more of those and you are good for the month of May. So this is it. This is all we have to do for this month is 4 of these little guys. So if you are behind, now this is a great month to catch up on your block of the month. And this is the corner of your center border. And next month, we're going to start working on all the setting triangles that make up the outside corners of your quilt. Thanks so much for following along. If you would like to get a book of Kaleidoscope Block of the Month, you can get it at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, or you may be able to get it at your local quilt shop. They're sold across the US and Canada. Just ask for Quilt Addicts Anonymous Kaleidoscope, and it's made with Northcott Gradations. So check us out online or see if it's at your local quilt shop. And until next month, happy quilting.